Okay, everybody, welcome to this special town board meeting. It's Wednesday, December 14th, 2022. I'd like to call this meeting order by asking everybody to please rise and say a pledge to a flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Again, welcome everybody. We are starting earlier for this meeting due to some scheduling issues. So we'll move right on. And the first thing on our agenda, public comments on agenda items only. Is there anybody in the public who would like to make a comment or ask a question on agenda items only at this time? Seeing nobody approaching the podium, I'm going to ask Rich Renia Jr. to approach the podium for a brief presentation on the final draft of our Town Comprehensive Plan update. Committee Chairman Richard Renia, thank you.
Good evening, everybody. I'm going to thank everybody on the board for putting your trust in myself and the rest of our committee members. A little background, this started in 2010 when a master plan advisory group was appointed. Then that continued on. It kind of died off in the middle there someplace. And then picked back up in 2020 when this group appointed a comprehensive plan committee. And then we took off from there and really got things going. So in the last 2 years, we've been able to accomplish a lot. And now what's been presented to you is a final document that's undergone a lot of revisions. It's undergone a lot of balancing. Balancing is a key word that I'll discuss this evening. So what is a comprehensive plan? A comprehensive plan is a town-adopted policy document. It's a policy document. It's not rules, it's not zoning, but it's policy. It's something to follow for the future. Like I said, it's not a law, it's not a regulation. It's a blueprint for the future to help you make decisions and help future boards make decisions. We will use this document as a guide for policies and actions. It can help you in future grant writing activities. It can help determine what you're going to do for community resources. I think a lot of people, when they think comprehensive plan, it's just about land use, but it's really about the entire community. And then it provides a very unique set of recommendations, goals and actions, and I'll explain how we broke that out in a couple of minutes. So a little general information about the town of Dover. I feel that way, and I think everybody on the board and the majority of residents, and I'm sure everybody here tonight, feels that the town is a very unique place. We have a lot of undeveloped open space. We have a lot of agricultural fields. We have a lot of forested ridge lines. We have a beautiful valley bottom. We have two very nicely developed hamlets, but that can use a lot of help. We have the Metro North Railroad, which is a really nice feature to have in our town. Moving through the process, we were able to do some research. So what I'm going to do right now is try to take this entire document and just boil it down to a couple of pages of notes for everybody to understand. So when we started in at this, we did research. One of the first things for research was doing a community survey. Reaching out to the people, getting people to participate, tell us what they want, what's important to them. So what we found with that is people want a grocery store. People want more shopping. People want more retail. They want more things to do locally. They want entertainment, recreation for the younger generation and for the seniors. And they want improved community resources. We also were given a grant by Dutchess County, which enabled us to have the Pace Land Use Law Center do a study for the town, which looked at Route 22 and opportunities that could be gained because we have this major road. There's some towns in the town of, or in Dutchess County that do not have a major thoroughfare, and they can't take advantage of that. One of the things that it found is a lot of people drive through Dover, but they don't stop in Dover. It also found that there are areas along Route 22 that could be developed and other areas that should not be developed. And then it also took a really hard look at the fact that we do have two hamlets with two train station stops, and that we really should be taking advantage of that and creating more of a transit-oriented community. And we can project that in the future with some developments in the hamlets. The other thing that we looked at, another study we looked at very deeply, was the Hudsonia report. It's a natural resource inventory for the town, which provided us with an in-depth review of habitat mapping, and it helps us to develop our conservation goals and practices. Also gives that habitat mapping allows us to see where it is, but allows us to protect our habitat, natural resource areas, and wildlife corridors too, because we are blessed with a lot of beautiful wildlife in this town. Another area or another item that we used was the U.S. Census data. So the most recent track being from the 2020 census, which is more recently out. So it's very, as far as data goes, it's very recent data. What we were able to find out from that, a few key highlights, and there's a lot of information in here. What I'm talking about, I urge everybody in the public to go online, get a copy of this document, and read through it. So what we found from the census data is the majority of residents work outside of this town. So there's less employment in this town. Everybody has to leave town, and the majority of people leave town to work. We have a lower median income than any other town in Dutchess County. So that's very telling. There's a lot that we can do to improve that, and I believe that there's a lot of recommendations in this document to do that. We can better people's lives. We can do things better and help people. And then tied to that is that the economic opportunities in this area, and it's not just Dover, but it's this side of the county, are more lacking, and that's partially because of the rural nature of things. So the document itself is broken up into a series of sections. And in those sections, I'll give you a section name now, and I'll give you a couple of bullet points of what you're going to find in there. So the first section is community values and character. And what you're going to find in that is the idea of enhancing the character of Dover, improving the sense of community, driving policy in this town by residents, not by outside forces, enhancing the quality of life, and increasing community involvement. We think that that's a really key item, and if we can increase and keep people involved in this community, it can be a vibrant community. The next section is demographics and economic development. So one of the big areas here, or one of the big themes here that we really latched onto, or we found, is that retaining our population. We're seeing that a lot of the younger population goes through school here, goes to high school, and then they leave and they don't want to come back. So we have to give them purpose and reason to want to come back to this town. We want to develop amenities and programs for seniors. There's a good population of seniors. There's going to be more. All of us are going to get there someday, but I think a lot of us would like to stay here, so we'd like to have some more programs and opportunities. So next is promote economic growth and attract new business. That goes along with everything else. If we want resources, and the public has told us what they want, and they want some more business, so we want to try to attract new business. And then we really want to target and focus that type of development in the hamlet areas. We think that that's the best way to go for the town, because we do have two nice core hamlet areas, but we really want to target that type of commercial growth and residential growth in the hamlet areas. The next section that you'll find in the document is housing. So with housing, one of the big goals is to provide a broad range of housing opportunities. It's kind of split right now. There's nice houses on really large lots, and then we can jump down to some really bad housing opportunities for people. We'd like to clean that up and find some more of that. People throw around the idea of affordable housing, which is a really hard term to define, but we just want good quality housing. And we think that the place where we can achieve that is in the hamlet areas, as well as throughout the town, but definitely in the hamlet areas. We want to promote home ownership. We think that that's good. People respect their property more when they actually own something rather than living in a rental. But if that rental is going to be what somebody can live in, we want that to be a nice rental and not something that turns into, I guess, kind of worn and trashy looking. We want it to stay nice. We want to expand the availability of good multifamily housing, revitalize blighted areas, because we all know that there are certain blighted areas in the town. And we have to adapt to housing trends, because as we're seeing right now currently, that the inflation is going crazy. Anybody who's been watching the news for the last 3 months, we're going to, as a town, have to adapt to housing because interest rates are up. So housing is something that's constantly changing. So we want to keep up with that. The next section is land use and zoning. One of the first bullet points there that we're very much interested in is reinforcing the Dover Plains and Wingdale hamlets, and that's a theme throughout this document. We want to preserve the town's natural resources. We can do that through zoning by applying protections. We want to enhance the town's overall rural character. We would like to promote appropriate areas for developing economic opportunities, and that goes to that discussion about where do you do it. We need more economic opportunities. We need some more development, but you can't just do it everywhere. So this document looks at that. We want to provide incentives for projects in the hamlets and near the train stations, which touches back to what I had talked about before. We want to promote central wastewater in the hamlets. We know that central wastewater and central water even in the hamlet areas is a key to growing those areas. We want to revitalize the Weebatuck Craft Village area. That was a key theme for the committee, that was something really nice at one point, and we would really love to see that area get revitalized. The next item in the or next section is natural resources. We'd like to protect and maintain the continued utilization of our natural resources. So the key theme throughout the natural resources section is protecting them, but also allowing utilization of them. Because we also feel as a committee and as a town that let's take care of our own backyard. Let's use some of what we have to take care of our residents. And we think that if we find the right balance, that can be a plus that this town could do. We want to ensure a abundant supply of natural resources for future generations to come. So there comes that balance again, that we can use our natural resources, but let's not exploit them. And we'll have resources for years and years to come. And as part of that is we're going to protect our aquifers and our water resources. The next section is community resources. So community resources, the biggest thing there is to provide quality municipal facilities and services. We want to provide good parks. We want to expand on what the town already has for parks and recreation. The next section is transportation. Transportation is a little tough in Dover because we're rural, but we do have the 2 train stations. You can't just hail a taxi or get an Uber real fast here. But we want to have a safe and efficient transportation system. And we think that can be done and get something better here. Try to lobby and get the county bus service back here on a regular basis. Maybe try to use the train stations to harness more of the car or the ride sharing services and make that just more abundant and more available to people. Historic preservation. We'd like to identify, protect, and promote restoration of Dover's historic buildings and sites. Historic preservation in the town of Dover sometimes can be a little bit difficult because, and we looked at it as a committee, we don't have a historic zone. We have, if you look around town, we have scattered historic buildings, but we don't have an area. Some towns have a downtown area. That's their historic area. Dover doesn't have that. So we look at this approach as more or less, let's try to incentivize private owners wherever we can to protect those existing historic structures, allow them to maybe do some out-of-the-box things with them, as long as they are preserving those structures for us. So that's the sections. I developed a series of bullet points from this document, which would be a series of themes and goals. So starting out at the top, as you read through this document, you're going to see improve the sense of community, enhance the character of Dover, preserve and expand hamlets, develop better housing opportunities, protect open space, maintain habitat areas and corridors, promote land conservation, encourage agriculture, adapt to changing agriculture. So that's something we talked about a lot. Is I'm going to pause on this one for a second because agriculture, for most of us, we've seen it change in Dover. 30 years ago, there was a lot of dairy farms. Those are no more. So agriculture in this area has been changing at a very fast pace. So we have some ideas that we think that the community would appreciate to allow these large parcels to stay large parcels and to stay as farms. But we think that we have to give these farmers, some more opportunities to try to have some more economic stimulus on their property. So some of our ideas are allowing farm restaurants on a farm, allowing a farm distillery on a farm. We have to tie that to them holding certain large tract of property. So we're not going to allow that on just a few acres, but if they retain large amounts of land, then you could do that and get a special permit approval for that. Continuing on, encourage large tracts of land to remain. So that's one of our ideas, but we have lots of ideas in here on how we maintain those large parcels. We want to promote tourism and lodging. We want Dover to become a destination rather than just a travel through. We want people to say, hey, we're going to Dover. We're going to stay for a few days. We're going to spend some money in Dover. We'd like to see that. We want to promote more business that provides goods and services to the residents because we know everybody that lives here has to drive a long way to get a lot of goods and services that they need. We want to develop architectural standards to improve appearance. So when things come to a planning board, we want to make it very easy for a planning board to say, yes, you meet the architectural standards, or no, you don't. We want to promote green infrastructure and low-pack, environmentally friendly land development practices. We'd like to look at heavy industrial activities and limit those where we can. We don't want to outrightly say no to any of them. We just want to look at them deeper in the zoning. We think that the zoning could be looked at a little bit in detail there and limit some of those activities. We'd like to update the zoning to include strong controls, standards, and permitting procedures for the power and energy industry. As we all know, there's been a lot of turmoil with the power and energy industry in the town because we've seen multiple larger projects on that right now. So we have residents that are very concerned about that. This document deals with that. We'd like to protect our surface and groundwater resources. We want to promote community events and involvement, improve existing community facilities, provide additional recreational options, develop a sidewalk plan for the Wingdale Hamlet. The Wingdale Hamlet needs a little work. We have a hamlet there, but there's not a real sidewalk system there. We would like to expand the sidewalks in the Dover Plains Hamlet and promote restoration of Dover's historic buildings. We'd like to ensure that new development respects historic traditions and engage citizens to share and contribute to their cultural heritage. And then these are all things that can help, that can be taken care of with rezoning as well too. So back to what I had said in the beginning, balance. That was a key word for our committee, was to try to balance the needs of everybody in this town. Not just try to tailor something to one group or the other group, but was to really balance everything for the town. Our committee, as you might have noticed, has stayed silent on any of the current town projects, any of the things going on. That was something that we decided to do. We're not giving our opinions publicly on anything because we want to maintain our distance from that, and we're just doing the work of the town. That's how we looked at it. So we wanted to find a balance between economic growth and the protection of the town's important resources. A land use plan, the key to a good land use plan is balance, balancing the needs of people, balancing the needs of nature, balancing the needs of our water resources. But we definitely believe that we have, within this document, balanced everything for all people of the town. And we believe, as a committee, that we've prepared a well-balanced document. And I guess I turn it back over to you now. That's the summary of the document.
Rich, I want to say again, which I've said quite a few times already, publicly and privately, I got to thank you. I got to thank your committee. We have two committee members here tonight, Marilyn Van Millen and Steve Vincent. This committee consisted of landowners, businessmen, former chairs of planning and zoning, current chairs, and members of planning and zoning. We felt we covered all the bases on that aspect of things when we came up with this committee with you, 3 years ago now? 2020. So we felt we covered all the bases. You guys have put a ton of work, a ton of time, and it shows it. The meetings that we've had, myself and council have had with county, the meetings that you held with county planning, very little feedback, nothing but positive, right? Everything's in a good place, everything's in a good line. Few changes here and there, and we're working on that, and this is part of the process. Hopefully one of the last pieces of the puzzle, right? So I thank you once again on behalf of the board. I thank Steve and Marilyn and the rest of the committee members, and we've reviewed it. This is our public hearing tonight, later on in the agenda, and we go from there. You know, thanks. I appreciate it.
Thank you. And I have actually one more fun fact that I was going to let everybody know, because I did hear a little talk, because we hear some stuff through our public input session, and then we had some comment letters that I was able to read through. And it was about the land use map that we proposed in the document. And there are some changes to land use districts, but it's a very small change. And this map right here to my left is in the document, and this was created to illustrate and show the parcels where there are proposed changes. So anything on this map that you see in white, there is no proposed zoning change or land use change. And anything with a color, there is a proposed change. Now, the town of Dover has 3,274 parcels. We're proposing a change on 382 of those. So that's around an 11% change. So in our thinking, that's a minor change. This is an update. And I just want everybody in the public to know that this was not a wholesale change of everybody's zoning. Some of the zoning changes were to correct wrongs from the last time that this was done, because we know we have distinct business areas and operating businesses that were rezoned into residential properties right on Route 22 or right on a state road. And I think everybody acknowledges that was a mistake last time. So multiple of those properties in there are done for that reason. Some of them are to take them out of commercial and put them into resource conservation, which is the dark green that you see here. So you'll see on this map that there was changes. The dark green you see is our 5-acre zoning and our resource conservation. So that's important for everybody in the public to understand.
There was some worry of certain things getting changed from one to another, and in many cases that they weren't changed.
Correct.
Which is good to see. And then the next step, once this is approved, hopefully sooner than later, once we get the okay from certain agencies and from the county, then we move on to zoning. And the zoning gets changed in accordance to what this guideline, this work in project, it's always a work in progress,
Yes,
right? You said that earlier.
Yeah.
And that's the next step, and hopefully soon after the first of the year, the committee will reform and get together and start working on the zoning piece of this big puzzle.
We're ready to get that done too.
Yeah. Thank you once again.
Thank you.
I appreciate it. Marilyn, Steve, thank you very, very much. Nice job. Well done.
Thank you, Rich.
Thanks, Rich.
Thank you.
All right. I hope that leaves you enough time for your travels to where you're heading. Good. All right. Thanks again. Oh, and Peter Sander, I am very sorry. Thank you very, very much. That's Rich Rennia's right-hand man. He had a big part of this. I looked over and there you're sitting. Sorry. You're welcome. But I thank you very much on behalf of the board as well, Peter. Thanks for everything you put in.
There you go.
That's right. Dover Nation. Yeah, once a dragon, always a dragon, right? So, but thank you very much. All right.
Thank you.
Good luck tonight. Moving on with the agenda, we're going to have another presentation on the Dover Plains pedestrian plan for Dutchess County Transportation Council.
Thank you.
The podium is all yours.
All right. Thank you guys so much for having me here tonight. It's always a pleasure to be in Dover. Tonight I'm not here with my colleague Emily Dozier, who's actually the project manager for this plan. but I will be presenting on her behalf. So I should introduce myself. My name is Tara Grogan. I am a junior planner with the Dutchess County Transportation Council, and I'm here to talk to you about the Dover Plains pedestrian plan. I do just want to mention I have a lot of stuff to get through, so I'll ask if you have questions or comments to please hold them to the end, but do make a note because I want to make sure I address any comments or concerns about the plan.
Something going on here. Well, I need to
There we go.
Is that, do you have it on your end?
I have it now.
Cool.
Fast.
I think that may have been me, but we'll.
Thank you. So quickly, just a little bit about the Dutchess County Transportation Council. We're housed by the planning department of Dutchess County, and our focus is transportation. So we work on 3 main products. One of them is a county-wide transportation plan that sets the goals for the county through 2040. We also have a capital program that we manage, and that is a listing of all federally funded projects in Dutchess County. And our last main task is transportation planning more generally, and we do that at a county-wide level and also at a local level, which brings us to this kind of plan, this Dover Plains pedestrian plan. We've done a number of plans like this throughout the county over the years, including some of the towns and villages listed below. So the way that we came to this planning study was through a request by the town of Dover to look at the Dover Plains hamlet, namely to improve pedestrian access at key locations throughout the hamlet. In addition, just improving transportation safety, reliability, and equity in some focus areas along Mill Street and 22. And lastly, and maybe most importantly, as it relates to this comprehensive plan update, to really encourage local economic development, support local businesses, keep people here in Dover, bring people to Dover. So we began this effort by assembling a local task force, and I have to say that our town clerk here, Katie Palmer House, did a lot of the legwork on that, bringing people together from the community. Local business owners, fire department, we have highway here tonight, and also general residents and community members. We've had several meetings so far, and we have 13 members in total, and we sometimes get some ad hoc participation at our task force meetings, which is great. So one of our first tasks as a committee was to define our study area for this plan. So to my left here, you can see that black outline is the full study area. And we have some key focus areas highlighted in red. And those are along Mill Street, at the School Street and 22 intersection, and on the southern part of 22 near the CVS Plaza and Dollar General. We also, initially we only focused on the 22 corridor and Mill, but we heard from the task force that there was interest in pulling in these neighborhoods east of the rail station along Maple Lane. So the first step after establishing our study area was to get out there in the field. We spent 2 full days in the field, members of the DCTC, the Dutchess County Transportation Council, and also some volunteers from the task force. And we walked around the hamlet of Dover Plains with our GPS receivers, which you can see, that's what that is below, logging data related to accessibility and also safety. So some of the things that we were logging included various sidewalk conditions, pedestrian accommodations like signs, crosswalks, and also things like street furniture, street trees. Basically trying to document the condition of walkability within Dover Plains. So we compiled this data and came to some initial findings. And what we found in relation to the sidewalks is that most of the sidewalks in the Dover Plains hamlet are actually in very good condition. That said, most of the sidewalks are also along Route 22. Of those sidewalks, A key finding was that about half of them are less than 5 feet wide, which is a concern because for accessibility reasons, if two people who are both using wheelchairs trying to pass in a 5-foot wide sidewalk, that's the minimum amount required for them to pass. Or even people using other mobility devices or even strollers. And not only were half of the sidewalks less than 5 feet, but actually a quarter were less than 4 feet, which you could see how that would be an issue. Another thing we looked at were sidewalk buffers, so not the actual sidewalk where you're walking, but the space between you and a road. So along 22, that's where we found all the buffers in the town, all the sidewalk buffers, about 1.5 feet. And the reason those are important is because they just provide a little extra space between you and moving vehicles, and they increase the walking comfort and encourage people to walk about. Other key findings related to accessibility. We saw some accessibility issues specifically with curb ramps, and that's a curb ramp right there. So in some places, there were missing curb ramps. So this is the School Street crossing, and you can see that if you start on that crossing on the east side of 22, particularly if you're in a wheelchair or have a mobility impairment, once you get to the end of that crosswalk, you might have to turn back into the street to actually get on the sidewalk because it's lifted up, there's no curb ramp. Some places also didn't have this strip here, and that's a detectable warning strip for people with visibility impairments to alert them that they're crossing into a place where cars might be. We also looked at crosswalks. We found there were only 5 marked crosswalks in the town. 3 of them were on 22, at Mill Street, and at School Street. And we did not find a lot of street trees or furniture, and that's something, again, that improves the walking experience, gets people out there comfortable on the sidewalks. So we took all this data and we brought it to the public. With the goal of this data was to kind of show a picture of walkability and what improvements maybe we could make. So we talked about it with the task force, and we listed some of our priority locations on these boards at Dover Day. I know some people in this room were there and probably saw us out there, but we gave everyone 3 sticky dots to mark on the board and tell us what their top 3 locations were or priorities were in Dover. So you can see on the left here, these were the top 5 locations voted on by the public, and the votes are in parentheses. But the top 5 locations, and I'll get into the specific recommendations, but at School Street and 22, at Ketchum Park, at Route 22 and Mill Street, number 5 here at the CVS Plaza, and then this number 4 recommendation is hamlet-wide improvements. Wayfinding signage, street furniture, trees, and also zoning improvements, which are being addressed in your comprehensive plan update. So now I'm going to get into the priority recommendations, and they're still draft. We want to hear from the board, we want to hear from the public, and I'll get into our next steps after I go through these recommendations. So we developed these through discussions with our task force, through lots of calls with New York State Department of Transportation. I'm going to call them NYSDOT, Metro North, and we also used our feedback from Dover Day and input from DCTC staff. So the first location, which was a priority for the public and the task force, is at Route 22 and School Street. And the idea here was to make this a safer crossing for people walking. This is one of the most used crossings in the Dover Plains hamlet. We learned that a lot of people will park at the school and walk this crosswalk to get up to the Stone Church. So our recommendation is to install flashing beacons, or RRFBs, which stands for Rapid Rectangular Flashing Beacon. And if you haven't seen one of those before, there's a picture here, and basically what you do is you push the button and the lights start flashing on that to alert drivers that people are about to be crossing and they need to slow down or stop. The other recommendation at this location would be to install these curb extensions or bump outs. And again, that's a pedestrian safety recommendation By installing those, you give people who are trying to cross more visibility for the cars that are coming, and you give drivers more visibility for the people that are trying to cross. Short-term improvement is improving the signage at the crossing. So you can see in this picture, this is from when we were in the field. There is a crossing sign here, but there's not one on this side. And this is something we actually worked with NISDOT on. And as I was driving down 22 today, I did see that they fixed the signage here. So that's a short-term improvement just to draw people's attention to the crosswalk. Another priority location is at Route 22 and Mill Street. So similarly here, and for the same reasons, we're recommending curb extensions. And I do need to point out that these are not engineered drawings. You would have to evaluate truck turning radii before installing anything like this. But it improves visibility, and it also shortens crosswalks, so there's less distance for people to cross. Another recommendation here would be to install another crosswalk on the southern leg of this intersection, just to provide more connections. And with that, you would also have to install upgraded signals, crossing buttons for pedestrians. Another item we talked about at the task force was to potentially eliminate right turn on red. That is still under discussion. Not everyone is supportive of that recommendation, but it does improve safety for people crossing. So still being determined. Along Mill Street, which is one of the main focus areas, one concern we heard from the committee was speeding along Mill Street. And also in our field work, we just felt that, you know, it sort of has this wide open feel to it when there's no cars parked along there. So our recommendation here would be to add a center line to visually narrow the street. And you can see an example here on the left. In the town of Poughkeepsie, they added a center line on South Grand Ave, and also on the edge there, some edge line striping, just to visually narrow the street and encourage slower speeds. A big focus area that we realized when we were out in the field is the train station. These are some pictures from when we were out in the field. You can see on Market Street, in front of these businesses here, the sidewalk space is limited, not because it's not wide enough, but because you have cars encroaching upon it. And then along Market Street on the left, and this is Railroad Street, there's no sidewalks, and you just have these wide open paved areas. It's not the most inviting for people visiting the town, and there's not really a place to walk for people maybe walking to or from the train station. So some of our recommendations for this area, to provide a space for people to walk, we're recommending installation of sidewalks. Again, this is really draft, but installation of sidewalks give people a place to walk, and it would also visually narrow these areas. Another recommendation is to clarify the parking on Market Street in this area. Right now, it's not totally clear. Is it business parking, employee parking, or is it parking for the train itself? So you could do that with signage, striping, and also with some curb stops, and that would rectify the issue of cars encroaching on the sidewalk. Some of the other improvements for this area, so in the light green there, just generally improving the aesthetics. Right now there's guide rails along the tracks there and some concrete highway barriers. So we're recommending, you know, aesthetically improve this area maybe through decorative fencing and plantings, make it inviting, make it a space where people want to be, want to visit. And a lot of these improvements we think could be coordinated through funded MTA projects. So the MTA has funding set aside to improve the actual rail crossings here at Mill Street, and also, it's not pictured here, but up at just south of the platform, I think. So actual spots where they're crossing the tracks, MTA has funding set aside, and they're working with the town on how they can best make those projects align with this plan and the town's goals. And lastly, I'll also mention, we recommended to actually stripe out some crosswalks along Mill Street and across Mill Street with the same goal of providing a space for people to walk alerting drivers that people might be walking there and improving the safety and the visibility in those areas. And progress report, at the train station area, we actually have had some crosswalk stripes, I think, by the town highway department. So you can see now there's a place for people to walk, but at the same token, this is where those curb extensions, which would be like here and over here, that's something that could help shorten the crosswalks and really define that space, make it safer. So another priority location is Ketchum Park. One of our recommendations was to improve the signage. It was a little bit cluttered, not totally clear where the park was. A sign has temporarily been installed, and it's very clear Ketchum Park is this way. The sign could be upgraded in the future to align with other goals of the town with their new design and wayfinding signage. So that's one option there. Also at Ketchum Park, we were recommending to close this sidewalk gap. Right now it's kind of like gravel, rocks, but the sidewalk ends here and picks up here. So we're recommending close that gap and also add a crosswalk to direct people to the park. While we're on the park topic, we're also recommending to pave that gravel driveway and construct a sidewalk to bring people into this great resource that the town has. Along Maple Lane, again from the task force, one of the main concerns they had was speeding. Apparently cars, fly through here, and right now it's just a wide open road. So similarly to Mill Street, we're recommending, stripe a center line to visually narrow that road. And then in combination with that, which the town has begun work on, is using this portable speed feedback device that tells drivers how fast they're going as they're approaching it, to encourage them to slow down. And this device is something that could be moved around to other locations throughout Dover where there's concerns of speeding. Lastly, you could also install speed tables along this road. There is a temporary rubber removable speed table that you could try initially, and if the town likes the effects of that, they could look at a more permanent option. This is the last one. There's going to be a lot more in the plan, but we're getting close to the end here. So at CVS Plaza, this is a longer term recommendation, but to close the sidewalk gap. Right now, the sidewalk cuts off just north of the plaza and picks back up again south of the plaza near the Dollar General. So long-term recommendation would be to close that gap with the sidewalk here. In addition to that, and you'll hear the theme again and again, but just providing a space for pedestrians. So in this parking area, striping out pedestrian walkways so cars expect people to be there and just increase the visibility of people walking. Lastly, this is something we heard from the task force, is that there's a lot of illegal left turns for cars traveling northbound into this plaza, turning left. So one recommendation we have is to work with the plaza owner to clarify the signage at that north drive. Right now there's a one-way sign for coming northbound, trying to turn in. It almost looks like you are supposed to turn there, but it's an illegal turn. So that's recommendation there. As far as next steps, we are going to finish writing the draft plan. We are already underway writing up some of these recommendations. But once we've drafted the plan, we'll bring it to the task force, edit and finalize the plan, and bring it back to the board and to the public for their input. And in the meantime, we're going to continue to work on some of these recommendations through coordination with NISDOT, MTA, and Metro North. So with that, that is all of our draft priority recommendations. I know it's a lot of information, but I'll just plug our website here. We are posting updates at dutchessny.gov/Dover Plains Pedestrian Plan. And at any time after this presentation in the coming months, feel free to reach out to us. You can use our general email here. There are also flyers on that table over there that have our contact information and some more details about the plan. So So with that, I would like to open it up for questions, but thank you so much again for having me here tonight to talk to you about this.
Absolutely, thank you very much. I can say a couple of those
Thank you.
A couple of those things are in place, or actually in the process of being put in place. We've decided to upgrade the speed data, the miles per hour sign.
Yeah.
We bought one version. We realized it wasn't going to be as easy as we thought it would be to work with and to move throughout the town. So we made the decision to upgrade it to that trailer type device.
Nice.
And then either the highway will help us out, or our rec department workers will help us out by moving it from spot to spot. No announcement made, just put it there one day. So that's been done. I believe we confirmed we're doing the striping on Mill and Maple. Once we confirm whether it's going to be 2 lines or 1, I know there was 2 lines.
That's recommended. Yeah.
Okay, so that's going to happen. And then I have reached out, I sat through a introductory Zoom meeting, we're still in the Zoom age, with Senator Hinchy. She takes over our part of the district. We're now in her district, I should say, come January 1st. So we met with them, and the discussion we had with, it's a state highway, we feel it should be some state funding, and they basically said, no, it's all yours. So
Sounds familiar.
I brought that up to her, and she said she will forward me some avenues to take for both funding, and she will gladly talk to us about what we need and what we'd like to see there. And like a lot of politicians, we'll do what we can, and we'll go from there. But it was very positive. She understood it. She actually sent me an email. So after the fact, privately, said, we'll talk.
Nice.
So we're going. So we made some strides on some of the things we've talked about.
Yeah, that's
But
really
I thank
great
you
to
for
hear.
everything.
Yeah, it's really great to hear, and I also wanted to add, our goal with this final plan is to give something to the town to take and use to make these changes, even at the school street crossing and the Mill Street crossing, the Transportation Council, we're working with our consultant to develop some design concepts that you can take and apply for funding with. So that's really one of our goals here, is to, get the recommendations that you want and then help you make those happen. So I'm glad to hear that things are happening already.
Anybody else? Councilman Maluta?
No, I'm good. It looks good.
Murphy?
I actually have 2 comments. You made reference of street furniture. What is that?
So street furniture is anything that's like between the sidewalk space and like people's yards or along the sidewalk. So that would include things like benches, maybe small tables, even garbage receptacles, planters, things like that.
Got it, okay. And then you made a couple of comments of bump outs. Is that like construction that needs to be done, or is that's like groundbreaking? And
Yeah, so the best way to
because the issue that the reason why I bring that up is
Sure.
because plowing and it's obviously going to be issues, right?
Yeah,
So-
it's definitely a concern with bump outs. The goal with bump outs is to have them constructed with a curb, because that provides the most protection to people that are walking. Some examples of other towns in Dutchess that have done this: the city of Beacon applied for, I think, state funding to construct bump outs all along their main street. And if you've ever driven in Beacon, you know how narrow it is. This will be the first winter with those bump outs installed, so we'll see how the plows do it. But they were confident that that it would work.
Jason will let you. Okay. And then one last comment, the speed monitor. I know a lot of this study was all done up in Dover. I'd like to see maybe possibly moving that down to Wingdale. And that was a great presentation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilwoman Jackson?
Thanks for all your hard work and the task force hard work. I think it would be a good improvement.
Thank you.
Deputy?
This is all good stuff. The crosswalk at J.H. Ketchum is something that really should become a priority for us. considering that is the only kind of sidewalk getting over to that. And I think that that's something that we could do within the town as a town road, so that there's not really too much that's going to fight us there. That street furniture is tough, as you could imagine. There might be some areas in town, but in regards to like the Route 22 corridor, we're probably 580,000-pound trucks traveling up and down Route 22, 16 hours a day. Who's not the most inviting place to be enjoying your coffee on a bench. But that being said, this material's got to move one way or another. This is all great stuff. Thank you very much.
The big talk was on that was also easement, footage for easements off of, does the sidewalk come right to the property line? Would we have to get permission from the property owners, et cetera, et cetera? The width of the roads for wider sidewalks is a major concern, because right now there are certain days that we use curbside parking for church events, so on and so on. But yeah, like Jason said, that's all been discussed. Yep.
And just on the street furniture, I do want to note, that was your exact comment was a topic of conversation at the task force, and we did develop a list of potential locations for street furniture along Mill Street, not along 22
Sure.
at this time, but
Thank you.
thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank everybody at Dutchess County Planning, especially within your office. Thank you very, very much. And again, thank you, Katie Palmerhouse, for being the lead on this endeavor and this study and everything else. She's definitely the driving force in putting the committee together. And I got to thank everybody on the committee. I don't think there's anybody here tonight except for myself and
Some folks
Jason.
are watching on TV.
Yeah, and they're all watching at home, so that's a good thing. But thank you very much.
Thank you so
Have a
much.
great holiday and Merry Christmas and
Thank
Happy
you,
New Year,
all of
please.
you. I really
Yes.
appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tara. Could she possibly get a USB and the remote back?
Need that thumb drive back.
Okay, great.
What does it say up there? How do you get out of it?
Come right down to here and highlight that and just
I
exit.
don't think I'm on it. Can you do it on your end? With the
No.
no. Oh yeah, no. There it is, huh?
End show,
Oh, where's end show?
the bottom.
Bottom one? Can't read it. There we go.
There you go.
No,
You need
where-
glasses?
Huh? A little too small for me today.
Next is the,
Doing a lot of this today. A lot of pounding.
all right, all good? Okay, next on our agenda is a public hearing on the draft comprehensive plan update. I'm at this point in time, do we have anybody signed up?
Not yet.
Make a motion to open it first.
Yeah.
I'll make a motion to open a public hearing on the Dover Plains draft, public hearing on the draft comprehensive plan update.
Second.
I have a motion made by myself and seconded by Deputy Supervisor House. All in favor to open?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Public hearing is open. Do we have anybody signed up to speak?
Not yet.
Not at this time?
Nobody.
Okay. I see two people here. They must not have realized they needed to sign in, but go ahead. You have 3 minutes.
Good evening. Charlie Quimby, 81 Cricket Hill Road. I'd like to thank the committee for their time, dedication, and perseverance. I recognize the complexity and challenges of this task. In general, I support the text of the update regarding preservation of open space and natural and historic resources. However, I do feel there is some inconsistency between what the text says and what we see on the zoning map. Regarding zoning, I have concerns with the proposed commercial and hamlet zoning along the 10 Mile River at Route 55 and along many stretches of Route 22, adjacent to the Great Swamp and the Swamp River, and its impact on biodiversity and protecting our natural resources. There are reasons why these areas have not been developed and why it is not suitable for development. I feel that much of the proposed commercial and hamlet zoning is too much at once I think the town would benefit from a more segmented rezoning, starting with the true hamlet areas first, near the train stations, evaluating that, seeing how it works, learn from it, and should the town truly need more, revisit later. I feel strongly that we do not have a sustainable need for this much commercial development that is proposed at one time. If the zoning proceeds as drafted, certain lots will be developed in between existing residential uses, and commercial development will be scattered with homes in between. I also ask that the committee consider the possible negatives of a floating zone. Is it necessary to have this uncertainty in our zoning? It is critical to incorporate measures to reduce and mitigate health and environmental hazards for residents, including remediating polluted sites and conserving land that if developed could threaten our water sources and natural resources. This includes along streams, rivers, and around our aquifers. I would also like to take a moment to express my support for the energy project moratorium that has been proposed, and a zoning plan that ensures we never have another Cricket Valley in our town, and that also includes a pipeline or Transco. Thank you for your consideration and for all your hard work for our town. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Quimby. Ma'am, would you like to speak?
I came to listen, but I do have a question.
Okay.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jessica Wade, residing on Route 55 in Wingdale. I was wondering if there'll be other public hearings for the comprehensive plan, or how much longer will we be able to submit comments?
As of right now, we have scheduled for tonight.
Okay.
The board will decide after this whether or not we keep it open.
Okay.
I will tell you that I will suggest that we keep the meeting open to accept written questions and/or concerns for a time frame we'll discuss here in a little bit. And then, Tom, would we close it, or would we keep it open on the 28th and close it on that day?
That's up to the board. So the board can make a motion to close the public hearing tonight and keep a period open for written comment, or they could close it totally, or they could keep it open and open to the 28th, where they'd accept up until the meeting written comment, and you could have public comments still at the 28th if you keep the whole thing open. So those are your three basic options.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
My other question is just in regards to the parcels of land along Route 55, in particular my family's home, and the parcel of land next to which has been preserved land for the last 30 years, and my family's home has been zoned as residence for the last 30 years. But now in the new plan, it's been changed to mixed use, and I was wondering if the board could specify what mixed use would be for, say, my family's home that's currently a residence, or the parcel of land next to us which can't be built on. You can't install a septic system because of the proximity, how close it is to the river, by the 10 miles. So I was just wondering if you could expand on what mixed use means in the comprehensive plan.
I'm going to ask Ms. Van Millen if you could meet with Marilyn right after, give her the actual location,
Okay.
all right? And she would be able to explain that to you right afterwards,
Okay, great.
all right? And if not, she'll take it back to the committee and we'll get you that answer, okay?
Perfect. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Marilyn.
Thank you.
Anybody else like to speak? Seeing nobody else approaching the podium at this time, I'm going to move, oh, go ahead.
I'm sorry, I just came in, so.
This is the public hearing.
Yeah.
Comprehensive plan, yep.
Hi, Adam Haid, over on Old Forge Road. I was just wondering if you could elaborate. I read something about the tiny houses and talk about, it was a little confusing if it was, we're looking to expand or change the zoning to allow for more ease up on zoning for tiny houses, or is it to pull back and make it more restrictive.
I think part of the issue is there's nothing in the zoning right now that covers tiny houses.
house.
So this is a document, this is a directory, a direction to take, and now the next step is to rewrite the zoning and rewrite the zoning that would fit the town for that topic.
Got it. What's confusing, it just seems like the comprehensive plan, the devil's in the details. So, I'm reading through it, and some of it sounds great, and then some of it it's like, okay, that could be really great, or it could be really bad. But it just depends on the zoning and how it's written. So it
Which
would
hasn't
seem to
been done
make
yet.
More sense to me to have these hand in hand, to be working this out, come up with a plan, come up with the changes in zoning or the proposals, and then be able to comment on it. But kind of looking at it like this floating zone, I mean, to me, it's like you read through it and you get the idea of most of these items, but then the floating zone is just kind of like, and then we'll decide if we just want to take a large area and do whatever we want with it.
Well, that's your opinion.
No, I'm just saying that's the way I'm reading it. I mean, I could
Okay.
be completely wrong. And again,
And the
it's-
committee could be reading it or writing it differently. So we're going to take your information, your question, or your statement tonight, we'll take it back to the committee, and they will hammer it out for you. But this is the first step in the redoing of the master plan and the zoning process.
Got it.
You would like them both to be here at the same time, if I
What's
under,
that?
you'd like them both to be here at the same
I
time,
just-
if that's the way I'm
I just think
understanding.
there needs to be clarity on, yeah, just, it's.
There will
hard
be
to-
another process within the zoning once the zoning is submitted. Nothing changes until we go through another process such as this, correct? Correct.
So will this be voted on, like the comprehensive plan, just because I don't know how it works? Will the comprehensive plan be voted on, then accepted?
Yep.
And then, once that's accepted,
Then the zoning will be rewritten.
and then the zoning, is there another ability to weigh in on the zoning
Yep,
changes as well?
absolutely. The process was putting the new comprehensive, and correct me if I go wrong, Tommy, because elected officials did not sit on this committee. This committee was solely residents, business owners, former and current chairs of zoning and planning. The elected officials, like in the past, we chose to stay uninvolved. Just feedback, went to meetings if we were needed, and that is it. We left it up to the people, okay? So the process was put this book together. You've seen it, it's out in front of us. 3 years' worth of work, redoing what was there already, rewriting what was there already, researching things that needed to be in, that weren't in there. Then it's presented. We had a consultant come in through grant monies. We presented it to the boards, we presented it to the planning and the zoning board members. We did our review. We give our feedback to the committee chair. He brings it back to his committee, and then we submit it to county planning. Nothing happens until county planning approves it. Correct, Tom?
Correct, and to answer Mr. Hade's question, if there's going to be zoning changes adopted down the road, that would be done by local law, so it requires a public hearing. So answer your question, there would be additional public hearings on zoning changes.
Okay.
Yeah, the comprehensive plan is just an overlay. That's not a local law, so
It's a direction to take. It's a work in progress from day one, even the day it's approved. It can be a work in progress. We've specified different from past years. This will be reviewed, whatever we choose, quarterly, every other month, biannually, annually. That's still yet to be determined, but it is a work in progress from day one until forever. Changes can be made, additions can be made. The moratorium that Mr. Quimby spoke, that's considerations to be added to this as well, such as the tiny houses. It's all things being Airbnbs. That's touched on in here because it's things that 30-year-old zoning didn't have. So now the next task is, if and when this is approved, whether it's in the next 2 weeks or month, approve this and start rewriting and laying out the zoning to the guidelines that were put into the comprehensive plan, AKA the master plan.
Got it. all right. Well, I appreciate that. What brought
The
this
public
about-
hearings is what I was meaning to say, I just didn't elaborate the details, my apology.
No, that's fine.
Yeah.
It was a concern of mine, especially the tiny houses, being that I'm a real estate agent and been doing that for a long time. I see a trend for it, and I think you have to be extremely careful when you start to, allow people to come in and, and start building these tiny houses, and, it could quickly go downhill fast. And I'm also concerned about having Airbnb and VRBO rentals all over the place. There's not pride of ownership. If tiny houses, all of a sudden we have a developer coming in and says, great, I can use these trailers here as my tiny houses and start renting them out. It's a concern that I think everybody should, look at. And the emails, what happened was I actually came across an email through a FOIL of a different project, and in that it was talking about encouraging tiny houses, that we have to change our zoning so that tiny houses would be allowed. So that's my concern, and that's why I wanted to address it. But it's comforting to know that this is just the beginning process, and that we'll have time to weigh out, or at least weigh in, I should say, on zoning changes. So, thank you.
Thank you for your questions. Mr. Quimby, if you have something else, I'll gladly let you speak one more time, seeing how I give Mr. Hayde more than 3 minutes. You good? Okay. Anything else? I'm going to keep it.
Keep it open till the 28th.
Okay.
What's the rush?
All right. I move that we keep this public hearing open until the 28th. We'll also accept any written comments or questions to be answered, hopefully on the 28th. Is that okay? All right. You want to second that, Deb?
Second.
Motion's made and seconded by Deputy Supervisor House, seconded by Deputy Supervisor House. Motion made by myself to keep this public hearing on the comprehensive plan open until December 28th, which is the next date of our next regular meeting. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The public hearing will be kept open until the 28th. Okay, moving on. We have one resolution that we need to read. I'm going to take a drink with this one.
Please read it.
Yes,
Yes.
Why?
because it's not in the consent, we don't have a consent agenda tonight.
Yep. Resolution authorizing budget transfers, budget amendments, payment of off-abstract purchase orders, and prior abstract amendments. Be it resolved that the Town Board of the Town of Dover hereby authorizes the following budget transfers. 22 budget from line A 7310-100 to line A 7020-100 in the amount of $3,500. From line A 3620.1.100 to line A 7020.1.100 in the amount of $4,000. Line A 3620 to .1.100 to line A 1440.4.400 in the amount of $1,364.25. Be it resolved that the Town Board of the Town of Dover hereby accepts receipt of the following unanticipated revenues and/or authorizes the following budget amendments. Workers' Comp Safety Award received 11/28 of '22, increased the revenue account SF 2701000 by $2,000. Increase expenditure account SF 3410.4.400, $2,000. Lighting District, increase revenue account SL1 9999000 by $957.86. Increase the expenditure account SL1 5182.4.400, $957.86. ARPA, budget modification for speed sign trailer. Increase revenue account A 4089001 by $5,375. Increase expenditure account A 1620.4.420, $5,375. Approved from restricted scholarship fund balance, increase revenue account A9999000 by $300. Increase expenditure account A2915.4.400, $300. Interest earned on the CDBG fund transferred back to general fund money market. Increased revenue account CD4 2401000 by $13.53. Increased revenue account of CD4 9999000 by $16.11. Increase expenditure account of CD4 9901.9.900 by $29.64. Highway Equipment Garage, see Resolution Number 1792022. CVEC Community Cricket Valley Energy Corp. Community Benefits. Increase the revenue account H1527050000 by $100,000. Increase the expenditure account H155132.2.200 by $100,000. To facilitate interfund transfers, increase revenue account A 9999000 by $138,240. Increase the expenditure account of A 9950.9.000 by $138,240. Increase the revenue account D 999900, $150,000. Increase expenditure account D 9950 by 9.9.000 of $150,000. Increase the revenue account H 155031 $288,240. Increase expenditure account H 151440.2.200 $2,990. Increase the expenditure account H 155132.2.200 $285,250. You've heard the resolution. I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Brought by House, second by Murphy. Discussion. That is end of year moves, project expenses, and moves from one account to another, so on and so on. It is the end of the year. Any other discussion? Hearing no further discussion, all in favor to accept?
Aye.
Any opposed? So carried. At this point in time, are there any public comments? If you have any comments, please approach the podium.
Supervisor,
Yep.
can I just ask your time and consideration of a letter of intent for a grant that's due next Monday? This is through Dutchess County, similar to our pedestrian plan. It's kind of a no-cash grant where the PACE Land Use Law Center would assist with economic development studies, and perhaps we could do it of the Dover Plains Hamlet to take our pedestrian plan the next step and be able to have them look at the actual, infrastructure and give us recommendations on what types of businesses to recruit, ways to make the hamlet more economically viable. They helped us before in 2018 with the corridor analysis, so this would be a corollary to that, but more focused on the center. And on the back page, I just realized it requires a letter of intent, so we could just do a contemporaneous resolution if you authorize a letter of intent.
If
then
the
we-
board's so inclined, they could do it by motion.
Okay.
Make a motion,
And this is a
authorize it.
no-match grant?
It doesn't require a match, and it would be more like services
Okay.
than actually having to recruit an RFP, things like that.
Motion to write
To,
a letter of intent?
To authorize the application for the grant, authorize supervisor to sign and town clerk to sign all necessary applications and paperwork, including a letter of intent.
I will move to make a motion on Tom's explanation of this process. All intent for letters, and along with the intent for the grant. Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion made by myself and seconded by Deputy Supervisor House. Any discussion? Hearing no discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, once again, are there any public comments before we end the meeting? I don't see any need for an executive session. Anybody? No? Seeing nobody approaching the podium, Next meeting will be Wednesday, December 28th. The following meeting after that will be after New Year's, January 25th. At this point in time, I move to adjourn. Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion made by myself to adjourn, seconded by Councilman Murphy. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So carried.